Hello everyone, this is Macklemore. He's just a little guy. He's editing today's video because I'm in Disneyland Paris. Please be nice to him. It's his first time, so you gotta be nice. Gotta leave a nice respectful comment for Macklemore. I mean, fuck knows, I'm not paying him commission. Originally, we filmed a little intro skit, but not only was it unfunny, it was like nostalgia critic kind of unfunny. And sometimes it's just better to enjoy a damn good doc. Okay, that's enough. On with the show. So, Doctor Who at the theme parks. Untapped potential. We might get close sometimes with a themed experience or live theatre. Hell, the director of Universal Horror Nights wants Doctor Who, massive Whovian, needs them in the park. There's also that rumoured BBC theme park they never actually built in that part of Surrey. Roll up, ride the Doctor Who time coaster, and then go on the Top Gear dark ride in the Coronation Street fucking meet and greet. The idea feels impossibly, unfairly far away. All I want is for my first love to meet my second love. Luckily, there are tons of Doctor Who stories that take place in and around theme parks. In all of the fun of the fair, the Slovene are running a local fairground, doing corporate espionage so they can copy the business model and take it back home for great success.
And they don't want Slovene world, they're out to make money.
And that ends up being something the Slovene return to a lot. Forget politics, Slovenes are the demons of the leisure sector. In the end, the Doctor and Rose meet one in a hall of mirrors. It chases them around before they slide down the slide. And the Doctor puts vinegar at the bottom of the slide, and the Slovene dies horribly. I adored this story as a child. In the book Cursor, Sam Jones turns into a werewolf and goes on a horrific massacre, murdering hundreds of theme park guests. In true Wilderness Years fashion, she then continues, travelling with the Doctor after this horrific event. Early into Series 11, the fam all remember some distant theme park, but apparently it was imaginary. They share kind of memories of adventures that didn't actually happen. Uh-oh, are you telling me that some Jodie Whittaker stories may not be canonical? That seems dicey. Roll up to Jurassic World. It's just a whole planet of Jurassics. Come and see these towering, horrific predators. I can't tell whether it's a parody of Jurassic Park or Gatorland in Florida. Hey fellas, did you know? Jurassics are post-human. This means that some late-era humans mingled, quadrupled in size, and then went off the evolutionary chain to go and be Jurassics and roll around in the mud. That is an insane insinuation that we are genetically related to Jurassics. How did that happen? And I guess more to the point, why are we capturing them and putting them in theme park enclosures? Huh. And then you've got Earthworld, a cutting-edge simulacra of our home planet. So it's Epcot then. I do always wonder why more sci-fi isn't about Epcot. But who needs an imitation? The Disney parks are alive and well in the Whoniverse.
You have won our fabulous 50s tour. A whole week in Disneyland.
Are you having me on? Are we in it? No.
According to the girl who waited, there is a Disneyland on the planet Clom. And for this to be a prime luxury destination, that implies it's the best Disney World.
Authentically modeled on the famous Warp Speed Death Ride at Disneyland Clom.
With terrifying death roller coasters and the Absorbaloff. Come and meet him, kids. At the beginning of this audio, River Song is in a museum where this happens.
Is that who I think it is in there?
It is, yes.
Fascinating. I thought that thing about his head being frozen when he died was an urban myth.
That's the story his company issued. After they tried to put him in this, it was supposed to be the future of cartooning, but he ended up wiping out 30 animators. He was kept sedated after that.
For those who aren't clued in, that's Walt Disney's frozen head, often rumoured to be hiding underneath the park in storage. They made a movie about it. It's not true. But America tried to revive him. and he went on a killing spree. As a Parks fan, that sounds about right, yeah. In the official 1995 Doctor Who yearbook, Mark Gatiss writes a story where the Doctor and Susan come across a strange abandoned land, a city of the future. Turns out they read the sign wrong, and Eurosdeny is actually pronounced Euro Disney. Euro Disney was doing terrible in the 90s. It was a failed, botched launch. So for it to be depicted as an abandoned wasteland is very funny. That's in the 22nd century. We don't have long now. Your time's up, mouse. Then you got Winky's Wonderland, the creepy Five Nights at Freddy's theme park they built on the ruins of Gallifrey, even though apparently Gallifrey does remain intact until the end of time. In multiple different continuities, actually. Tickletown, Rakandi World, and Asgard. Those three are all 11th Doctor stories. He goes to theme parks a lot, which is incredibly in character. Asgard's a tricky one because it's a River Song reference from the main show.
Picnic at Asgard. Have we done Asgard yet?
But there's two different accounts of their date there. In one, Asgard is a theme park, but according to Moffat, it's the real Norse mythology Asgard, and Tenon River dine with the old gods. Maybe it's like the Hall of Presidents? Maybe it's a ride? Maybe that's an attraction? I don't know. Canon welding is impossible. We may never get a full-on Doctor Who attraction, but it's not off the cards. Remember, this is a country that's made Black Mirror, Wallace and Gromit, and David Walliams' gangster granny rides before Doctor Who. We're an IP-starved little island. We'll take whatever we can get. Fact number 2. Who's ready for expansive 4-hour Cybermen Law? This is the Cybermen archive tapes by David Banks. And may I just say, what a ride.
Learn the other Cybermen, Cyberology and Cyberfashion. Those whose origins are traced and retold elsewhere in the Cyberhive. Those whose shadows fall on many a civilization before their story is done.
Buckle in for 4 hours of that. I did that to myself. For this. Originally released on cassette tape, David Banks outlines the entire lore, historical timeline of a Cybermen. It's an in-universe text. Apparently, this is everything that humanity has gathered on the Cybermen, which might just explain why so much of it is wrong and weird and funny. This was written in the 80s. David Banks did not have a TARDIS wiki to go off of. He had a couple bullet points from the BBC archive and Ian Levine to hand. As a result, this timeline is filled with more than a little bit of artistic license. Under David Banks' mythology, the Cybermen are just like their own little wild thing. For instance, did you know that these guys are hardly Cybermen? In the 80s, the Doctor doesn't run into traditional Cybermen, not even once. Instead, Doctors 5 through 7 battled the Cyber Neomorphs. A full rebranding, because these are a completely different kind of baddie. Under David Banks, there are 3 different kinds of Cybermen that then all circle round and generate new kinds of Cybermen. When the Cyber Talosians leave Mondas, the Cyber Nomads have their own disagreements and branch off from them as well. When the Tomb Cybermen never wake up on Telos, it's the awful paddy suit Cybermen who come to bail them out centuries later. And it's in their smugness that they steal all of their tech and gain all of their weaknesses to become the new improved-ish Cyber Neomorphs. These are the Cybermen we see in the 1980s, that David Banks, Cyberman actor and mythmaker of the 80s, thinks are
excellent.
Doctor Who lore is a lot more fun when you let just one guy handle it. Banks has an explanation for everything, except for all of the things you'd want to ask. Like, why did these guys split up and fall out in the first place? Why do the Cybermen keep reinventing their own weaknesses, aversions to gold, radiation, certain types of flour, I think they're the only Doctor Who baddie who accumulates more fatal flaws and aversions as they evolve through the years. Like, get this, the original Cybermondans, they could hypnotize people. Like, they had hypnosis. But I guess they traded it in for that big booming voice and the occasional emotion. The 1980s Cybermen were overtly emotional villains, and I won't be told otherwise. Let's be clear, David Banks did not have an easy task here. Cybermen mythology has been confused since their very introduction. I wouldn't want to be the guy to apply timeline theory and make it all work on one plane. But he did. He took all of the classic Cybermen adventures and pathed a course where the Cybermen get from point A to point Z. The long way round, but it is a coherent timeline. Then we get round to the revival, parallel world Cybermen sideline all of these guys, before Moffat properly flips the board in World Enough and Time. Now, Cybermen can be born from anywhere, and are an inevitability. A lovely idea that throws the old timeline out completely. There's not 4 types, there's a billion. And they just happen to evolve through the ranks like Pokemon, because don't worry about it. There's actually a Master short story set in the events of the Doctor Falls when Sim Master and Gomez Master go off screen. They have a whole side mission with the young girl that almost would have ended the Doctor Falls early. It turns out that one of the lower decks generated Cybermen that look just like the Cyber Neomorphants, even down to the Cybermats, their guns, and the rubber moon boots. The Master presumably has Death Zone flashbacks, as he fries a bunch of them just for fun. Their plan is actually way smarter than the Doctor's, in that they'll change Cybermen's definition of what a human is, and instead make them look for beings that have 5 hearts instead of 1 or 2. The 80s boys do not like this and send down a cyber controller. I guess there is full chance that these ones didn't actually spawn from the ship, and they are the David Banks dudes that we know from the 80s. But not only is that a stretch, they all share the same path web. Every Cyberman ever made works under the same coding. According to Moffat, none of the David Banks mythology can really exist. Which is funny, because then he spends the rest of the episode name-dropping all of their origins.
Tell us! Olga! Canary Wharf! Planet 14!
All now non-canon. Then you get round to the really specific Cybermen types, like the Isomorphs. The Isomorphs are just the dudes from Silver Nemesis. Because they have a shiny faceplate, apparently they're a whole other subspecies. These guys got stranded in the late 20th century, and just made do on Earth. David Banks then attempts to make Silver Nemesis an even lamer Cyberman story, by claiming that the thousands of warships in Earth's orbit was actually just a ruse. A total bluff, because these scragglers only had 3 ships to hand, and were mostly taken out by a young girl. Fuck, man. The Neomorphs have time travel, and the Isomorphs are washed up losers, and I feel like I need a degree in this or something at this point, the amount of effort I've put in. Who else is going to tell you about the special kind of Cyberman that's designed for skiing? A Cybermondan with skis on. Shame on you. David Banks used to be the man for Cybermen. Literally the man. He's the Cyberman in the classic run. And what have we done with his comprehensive lore salad? We've discarded it. It's obscurity now. A 4-hour audio tape cassette that even I struggled to sit through. How the mighty have fallen. Canon waits for no man. Or Cyberman, for that matter. And fact number 3. Jack and River were the original Who-tubers. We're talking about the Monster Files. Back when Doctor Who had, online presence month to month, series 3, 4 and 5 came with online videos of John Barrowman and Alex Kingston cataloguing an alien threat in character, usually related to whatever monster was going to air on TV that Saturday. They tried a few different approaches to these across the seasons. In River's case, these are entries in her diary. For Jack, I'm pretty sure these crude PowerPoint presentations are official Torchwood documents.
The Centaurans come from the high-gravity planet of Sontar, which is how they developed such strong physiques and muscles. Look at that.
Homemade? Adorable. Everyone needs a hobby, especially if you're immortal. And then briefly, back in 2018 on the YouTube channel, they tried it with Yaz. Yaz's Police Case Files, which made considerably less sense, but that's okay because it was considerably less interesting. Many of these were like full-on short films and got really creative with the format. I implore you to search out the one for the Tricksters Brigade and the one for the Vashta Narada. Not only are they genuinely scary, there's big lore additions as well, including this shadow book, and more information on who the Tricksters Brigade even were. Sometimes all they've got is speculation, but sometimes these videos know way too much. For instance, Jack is omniscient. He just seems to know everything that took place in the revival, no matter what period of history it happened in.
If you're using an ood near a being with a powerful telepathic ability, like maybe an all-powerful demon from before the dawn of time or whatever.
Hahaha, that's very specific, Jack. What is it you're not telling us? Lots of these are still available on the old Doctor Who website, but I'm going to go through them one by one. Ood. In this we discover there are pilot ood, personal trainer ood, and soldier oods, which is an idea we'll come back to in Big Finish. The Hath. Half-friendly, really? This is an official Torchwood document.
As the human race ventured further and further into space, there was one alien creature that went with us. A race that helped mine the ores needed and pioneer the first colonies. The Hath.
Explicitly, we are told that the Hath were volunteer prospectors who came along to help humanity and then forgot why they were there and waged war on them. There's also a quick flash of Rose interrupting the file, as was the fashion at the time. Midnight. Yeah, there's a monster file just for the planet Midnight itself. Apparently the Doctor's whole trip was recorded, there's security footage of it, and at the end, Jack seemingly falls to the Midnight entity.
You'll be quite safe. 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 You'll be quite safe.
The monster file for the Vesper form creates a whole 1885 backstory in Delhi. Really goes above and beyond. Apparently the Vesper form fought a war against the Quarks, of all baddies. Very silly. And to finish it off, Jack buys the jewel that controls its mind in the episode, at an auction no less. Fires of Pompeii, apparently Cecilius tattled on the Doctor and wrote about everything that happened in Pompeii, even though the Doctor expressly told him not to do it. Fixed points aren't real. In the Slovene one, Jack just straight up gives away NATO missile codes.
But if all else fails and subtlety is not an option, blow them up. Just hack into UNIT's secure defense network and launch a missile. Oh, by the way, the password is Buffalo. And the outcome's a certainty.
And lastly, in the Jadoon one, Jack says they will kill people over parking tickets, insurance, and TV licenses. Also, they blow up a planet that looks suspiciously like Earth. Yas ones don't really give us anything. River's angel story gives us a little bit more backstory on Flesh and Stone. But she also mentions this little nugget.
Children know instinctively about the weeping angels. They even invent playground games to train themselves to escape them.
Hey, Mrs. Kingston, this episode's already pretty scary. Could you say something just to, reassure the kids at home?
Even if it's only a picture of a weeping angel, that doesn't mean you're safe. If you see them on television, that's the worst, the most frightening.
Thanks, Alex. I love these things. I want them to bring them back. Imagine how Trackie's monster files, Carvanista's dog report, Jericho's journal, Jack and River walked so that broke Canon could run. Is that what I'm ending this with? Thank you for watching, as ever. Seconds before I exported this, they announced the next Doctor Who. And honestly, Jesus, David Tennant is looking different these days.